Hi everybody. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at module 46, which is a little bit more about demand and then price elasticity of demand. Ooh, got to get my words out. So module 46, the first check your understanding question is about the income effect and the substitution effect. And for each of the following scenarios, you're supposed to say whether the income effect is in play, the substitution effect, or both. And if it's both, then like which one's bigger and which direction do they move? And when they're asking that, what they're really saying is like, does the income effect mean that the person's going to buy less of the stuff or more of the stuff? And really, they're testing, do you read that it's an inferior good? So let's get started. For A, orange juice represents a small share of Claire's spending. So that should tip us off that it's not really the income effect here. She buys more lemonade and less orange juice when the price of orange juice goes up. So that's pretty much what the substitution effect would tell us. She doesn't change her spending on other goods. So we would just say substitution effect. And then in which cases do they move opposite or same directions? We don't need to say that. It's really just saying it's the substitution effect at this point. And again, it's a small share of her income and she's buying something else instead. Apartment rents have risen dramatically. This is B. Since rent absorbs a major part of her income, that should tip you off. That's the income effect. Delia moves to a smaller apartment. Assume it's a normal good. So this is the income effect. And because it's a normal good, she's just moving to a smaller apartment. And it also says Delia moves to a smaller apartment. And some students have told me over the years, well, that should be substitution effect. But she's not really substituting like something different. She's buying another apartment, just a cheaper apartment. But if you do feel like that's substituting, then you can go ahead and say substitution, and that they're both moving in the same direction because they're both reducing how much she's consuming. C, the cost of a semester-long meal ticket at the university rises, representing a big increase in living costs. So that's the income effect. Okay. And it says, as a result, many students have less money to spend on weekend meals at restaurants and eat in the cafeteria instead. So this is actually also the substitution effect. But the problem is, assume that the cafeteria meals are an inferior good. So what's going on here is that the income effect is pushing them to increase their quantity of meals purchased in the cafeteria because the squeeze on their income is actually making them poorer, right? And so that they're trying to not buy as many of them, but they can't. And so what's outweighing in this case is the income effect. And it's a little strange because it's an inferior good. And as their incomes drop, right, because the meal ticket's more expensive, then that makes them poorer. And as they get poorer, then they can't afford those outside meals anymore. So they have to buy more of the meal tickets. And therefore, it makes them even poorer. And then it's like a vicious cycle. This is what we call a Giffen good. And if you read back in the text a little bit, they go into some detail about how Giffen goods aren't real. And so C is a little bit of a weird non sequitur, but it is it's an interesting story. So I encourage you to scroll back up in the text and take a look at it. Number 2, so they are moving in opposite directions in that one. The price of strawberries falls from $1 to $1 or $1.50 to $1 per carton. The quantity demanded goes from 100 to 200, and then it says use the midpoint method to find the price elasticity of demand. So I should be clear, in this class, you will never be asked to do the midpoint method. And in fact, in these practice problems, I'm going to ask that anytime you see that, you could just ignore it and just do it the way that I showed you in the lecture video where you're looking at the percent change from one to another. It's not as mathematically correct, but the midpoint method is also kind of basically an approximation of something that you would have to do in calculus. So we're going to ignore all the midpoint method ones, and we're going to just convert them into regular problems. So if the quantity demanded goes from 100 to 200, so the new value is 200 minus the old value is 100 over the old value. So that's percent change in quantity, and that's just 100 over 100, which is equal to 1. And we know that all of this is over $1 minus $1.50 over $1.50. That's the new value minus the old over the old. And that's equal to negative 50 cents over $1.50, which is negative 1/3. And 1 over a fraction like that is equal to negative 3. So negative 3 is the price elasticity of demand in this one. Number 3 for the check your understandings is another one where it says use the midpoint method. So it says at the present level of consumption, 4,000 movie tickets at $5 a ticket, the PED is 1. Calculate the percentage by which the owners of the movie theaters must reduce their price in order to sell 5,000. So this one we're gonna bend some rules a little bit, but this is the easiest way to solve this problem. If we're going to get to the new value of 5,000 minus the old value of 4,000 divided by 4,000, right? That's the quantity demanded percent change. And then what we're looking for is like, what does the price change have to be such that this is equal to 1? Because they give us the PED and they give us kind of these values, and they're saying how much does the price have to change by in terms of a percentage, right? And so we could say, the top here is 1/4 over something is equal to 1. Well, then that means the something has to be 1/4, and in a percentage, right? So if this is x equals 25%. And so what do they have to do in order to increase the number of movie tickets? They have to reduce the price by 25%. Number 4 is the PED is 1.2 at 50 cents, and the current consumption is 100,000. Calculate the change in the quantity demanded when the price rises by 5 cents. And again, it's telling us use the midpoint method to do this. Again, we're just going to do it the way I showed you, which is percent change of quantity over the percent change in price. So for this one, they give us the percent change in price, or at least they tell you it goes from 50 cents up by 5 cents. And so that's a 10% increase, right? And we know that PED is 1.2. So just once again, right, if you're going from 50 cents and you increase it by 5 cents, that's a 10% increase, right? 10%. And so what has to be here? How much does the current consumption level have to change when we do that? Well, it's going to go down by 12%. And remember, these are always absolute values. So 12% decrease is the answer. Okay, let's take a look at these multiple choice questions. And again, you don't have to do these for the bonus credit, but they are helpful for quizzes. Which of the following statements is true? When a good absorbs only a small share of consumer spending, the income effect explains the demand curve. No. The income effect is only a large share, so 1 is not true. A change in consumption brought about by a change in purchasing power describes the income. That is the income effect, right? So 2 is true. In the case of an inferior good, the income and substitution effects work in opposite directions. That's also true. Because the idea of the inferior good is that as the price rises of it, it's reducing your income. And we saw that kind of earlier with this Giffen good example. So they do move in opposite directions. The correct answer is 2 and 3 only, D. Number 2 says the income effect is most likely to come into play for which of the following goods: water, clothing, housing, transportation, and entertainment. I'm kind of on the fence between housing and transportation. They're both large portions of people's income, but we can go ahead and say probably housing is bigger. So we would just say C. And 3, a decrease in price from 2 to 1 causes an increase in quantity demanded from 100 to 120. And then again, it says using the midpoint method. So let me be clear, on the quiz, you will not be asked to do the midpoint method. And what I'm going to do is make the correct answer be if you do the percent change correctly. So a decrease in price from 2 to 1, right? And thinking about, how much is that? I'll just write all of these out for you. Okay, that way we can see 1 minus 2 over 2. And then, so these are the dollars because they go in the denominator. And then we're going from 100 to 120. So 120 minus 100 over 100. Okay. And you can see here that this is going to end up being 1/5. And this one's going to be 1/2. And so this is equal to 2/5, which is 0.4, which 0.4 is C. So note that on the correct answer for the midpoint method is not C, it's a different answer, but you don't have to worry about that. For our purposes, we'll just accept C. Number 4 says which of the following has the highest elasticity of demand? And so we're looking for something that's a luxury, it's really expensive, it's a big part of your income. Eggs, no. Beef, nah. Housing, that's pretty big. Gasoline, no. Foreign travel. So foreign travel is pretty much a luxury because it's more of a luxury than housing, and it's a large portion of your income. So we'll say that. Number 5, 2% change in the price of a good, let me scroll that just a little bit, leads to a 10% change in quantity demanded. What's the value of PED? So 10% over 2% is 5, C. All right, let's take a look at free response number 2. Assume the price of an inferior good goes up, okay? In what direction will the substitution effect change the quantity demanded? Explain. So for this one, this would cause quantity demanded to decrease as people buy other goods because they're substituting the other products because this one's now more expensive. B, in what direction will the income effect change the quantity demanded? So this one is saying, well, the price of the inferior good goes up, so it squeezes your income. So it actually, and it's an inferior good, which means that your income is lower, so now you're going to demand more of it. So it's going to cause the quantity demanded, and actually it actually causes the demand to rise regardless of what the price is, as people's income goes down due to the price being higher. Therefore, the demand goes up for the good. And that it's kind of, I think it's a little squirrely to say quantity demanded here, but technically the quantity demanded is rising regardless of where we were in the previous price, because the demand is rising. C says, given that the demand curve for this good slopes down, what's the true of the relative sizes of the income and substitution effects? In other words, which one's stronger? Well, if it's sloping downward as the price is going up, then we know that the quantity demanded is falling, right? That's what downward sloping would mean. So we would say substitution outweighs income, and we could just say because demand is downward sloped. Right, and that's basically just saying because this quantity is bigger than that one. All right, hopefully this helped you. I'll see you next time.